Give it a shot. If you want to do another little hand clap. Oh, that was so weak. That was pathetic.
Weak. I was gonna do the hand clap thing, song or whatever. Yeah, there we go. That was shooting claps. Welcome to the Friend of Sinners podcast. I'm Josh. That's
Andrew. I'm back.
Woo! Andrew's back, and we are going to talk about busyness and when can you be too busy, and laziness, and can you find middle ground, and how do you do that, and what does that look like in your lives? So, Andrew, what do you think?
I think one of the questions I want to tackle right away, or one of the statements, is like probably one of the most often hearings we hear is idle hands is the devil's playground.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to tackle the idea like we look at busyness, we look at laziness in such an optics that like, hey, if you're not doing something, you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the devil's gonna put something on your path, put something for you to do. But I also want to tackle the opposite end of that, and what it's like to be too busy, what it's like to do too many things. Why is that a bad thing if you're doing so many things, whether it's ministry, gospel, or work or whatever? So yeah, I just want to get started on that. I don't know. As far as busyness, what do you think about that? Like, what comes to mind when like you think of a busy person? Like, what are there any kind of people you kind of think of or actions?
Yeah, immediately come to mind is like business guys, New York. Everyone's running to get everywhere. Everything's hurried, can't be late, and yet everyone's still late to everything. But you kind of started with like, why is it bad to be busy or too busy? And I think that the big one is that if you're busy doing something, that means you are not doing something else. And so it's like finding how do you decide what to do and what not to do, and choosing that and finding your priorities in life. Like there's so many people, so many Christians I talk to that they're like, I'm like, hey, what are you reading in your Bible right now? Well, I just haven't had time to do that, and they make good, very valid things. Like, well, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I have to commute to work, and then I have to work all day, and then I come back and I have to make dinner, and I got to do laundry, and I got to do this, and I have kids, and I have a wife, and there's just so many things, and it fills your time, and those are all. Nobody's going to say, well, those are bad things. It's good to have a job. It's good to have a family that you want to spend time with, and all those things. But it's when your priorities shifts to other things, you're going to get off track. And kind of as we were just talking today, in youth group, we call it the relationship Dorito, and tonight we just called it a triangle, but it's in relationships, it's you on the bottom of the triangle, others on the other side of the triangle, whether it be friends, wife. I'm going to go and continue on to job or your ministry or whatever it is, fill in the blank over here. The good things in life, and then God's at the top. And if these are healthy, good things that God's called you to, like going closer to God and then going closer to God too, like if these are godly things, you're gonna kind of you will start to come closer, especially in relationships. But
I feel like that applies to most like relationships, and I should clarify on something. Like, it's not a bad thing to be busy, but like all those things you mentioned, like they're good things to be doing. And so like I don't think just having a bunch of things to do is a bad thing. I just think the main thing that comes to my mind is priority.
Right.
You're asking your friend, okay, hey, have you read the Bible lately? No, I've just been so busy doing all these things, and it's kind of like, yeah, you are pretty busy, but at the same time, like, honestly, we always make time for anything that's important to us. If something's of value, we knock something else out to fill in that time.
It's you're too busy to read your Bible in the morning, but you have like every single night you watch a show to fall asleep.
Yeah, it's a good
example. You have that, and so you could just. It doesn't. People, I think, maybe also people get confused. Like, well, if I'm reading my Bible, it has to be like this big, huge thing of like an hour a day. It's got to be. I heard this one guy saying, he's like, I read my Bible or I study the Word or I pray every morning for 3 hours a day to start his morning. And he's like, and if I'm feeling like my day is awful or I'm stressed or something, I do it longer. And people hear that and they're like, are you insane? Like, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a guy, or met a guy that he woke up at 1 a.m. every morning to study the Word, one or two verses at a time, and he had these binders and stuff. Anyways, and then he would go back to sleep with his wife, and then he would wake up when she does later. And so he found the time. It was 1 a.m. in the morning, but he found the time because that was a priority in his life, and he made that and said it. But anyways, I'm getting a little off track.
Yeah.
But the being too busy with good things. I'm a busy guy. I do a lot of things, and so I used to be even more busy, where I would do Monday nights, where it was a men's group, Tuesday nights. At the time, I was working. Then Wednesday nights, I was a youth group leader. Thursday nights, we have our Bible study group, and then Friday nights was my downtime. And then Saturday mornings, I was generally meeting with someone, going to breakfast with somebody. Sunday mornings, I had church, and then I do the sound team. And every day, there was some sort of consistent thing every day of every week. And I was talking to our pastor about it. I'm like, I'm just feeling really worn out. I don't know what it is. And he's like, I'm telling him all the things I'm doing. And he's like, well, you just need to say no to something. I'm like, but they're all good things. Like, I'm looking forward to all the things. He's like, you can have too many good things.
Yeah.
Like, they can take your time. And so you're not able to rejuvenate and be able to put your focus on each of those things because you're so spread thin.
I don't know, like the thing that comes to my mind, like with them all being good things, and so what's the downside to being so extra busy? What's the trap in that? And one of the things that come to my mind, I have two particular, but the first one is like our business shuts us off or shuts down. Goodness gracious, shuts me off from other people. So like I don't have time for friends or family or other people because I'm busy with certain things, and that kind of comes with the territory. Obviously, like you can't spend equal amount of time with everybody in your life. You got to prioritize who you're with. But at the same time, like, I mean, some of us have our friends who are like, yo, what are you doing today? Work. What about this? What day are off this week? I don't have any days off this week. I'm picking up a double for every single day, or I'm working overtime, and it's like, bro, do you even have time to do anything outside of that? Like, it just, and they don't have time for people, you know, like they're just too busy either with their work or with their studying, especially if they're doing school at the same time.
One of the things I like that somebody recently pointed out to me was that pretty much most of, if not, we'll say most of Jesus's miracles happened because of like an imposition. Like somebody came to him, like he always had a mission of, I'm going to this place because we got to talk to somebody. I'm going here. And so he always had a destination in mind, in a direction that he's going. But then people would just kind of bump into him. Like the woman who's bleeding for like 12 years, she really just kind of butted in to his life and imposed herself into his schedule. And the blind people that came over, or the lepers that were screaming out to him as he's walking on a road to somewhere else. He was always going somewhere, but if he was too busy to stop for these people, like they would never have been saved. They would never have known him. And I think that goes with what you're saying. If you're too busy with your own agenda, you can miss those opportunities that God has set in place for you.
Yeah, and I think it's so awesome that you brought that up, because I was just thinking about a certain parable. And I know most people probably don't associate this with busyness, but the parable of the Good Samaritan. You know, we have this guy who's beaten up and tossed aside and left on this road, and he's bloodied. And we get this, you know, this chief Pharisee walking by, and he's, you know, sees this guy and says, you know, the way I imagine is, hey, I gotta be somewhere else. I don't have time to stop and take care of him. And I don't necessarily, like, I know that Jesus talked about it, whoever, the Samaritan had compassion. But like, I also think this Pharisee just probably had something else to do. It's like, hey, I have to be at the synagogue, or I got to be getting ready to meet up with someone. And the same thing with the Levites and the priest. And the Samaritan, like, he took in this guy, bandaged him up, put some oil and wine, And the thing that, like, I don't know, most people notice is, like, after that day, he had to leave him because he still had to go somewhere. He couldn't stay, but he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you some coins, and whatever else you spend, I will come back and pay for it."
Mm-hmm.
So he was already busy, and like, the way I like to always transcribe, or I always like to kind of make things a little more relevant. So an example for me would be like, how often do we drive by the road and see some car broken down on the side? How many times do we stop by? Or honestly, my first reading is like, hey, I can't. I wish I had time. I got to be somewhere. I got to go there. Or I had to be here by now. We don't have time for that.
Yeah, you always make excuse. My excuse is always, well, I'm on the highway. I can't. I'm already too far gone, and I can't back up.
Yeah. But like, it's just I realize like that's one of my most common excuses is like, hey, I've already got to do this. I don't have time for you, or I don't have time to stop by and deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think, like, it kind of the dangers of busyness is like we don't have time for people anymore because we're so busy with doing good things.
How would you say to somebody, like, to tell, like, are you too busy? Like, how do you know? What does that look like?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, like, this took some, like I said, the example for me was seeing other people on the road and realizing I'm making excuses to be too busy to help them. And maybe just look, like, kind of as you were talking about with Jesus, he's like, every time he's on his way to something, someone comes in and disrupts him. Someone comes in and he has to take care of the situation. I think we just need to be open to that, like, be open to disruptions. And I know that's kind of hard for particular people who are very, like, OCD, or people who have, like, hey, I have to, like, people who have their day planned and scheduled. I know that's really hard for those kind of people. It's more easier for people who are more flowy, people who are like, I'm sure on. But, like, if you're, it's kind of hard to point it out. I think it just takes some real self-evaluation. Like, do you feel like you ignore people often? Like, how many people?
What if I just don't like people very much?
Yeah. And then that's a very common issue.
I was reading this lady's blog that I ended up on. It's called Love Fast, Live Slow by Laura Mendenhall. And I can't totally recommend her because I don't know anything else about her, but I read her this one and it was really good.
Go for it.
And so the thing she said was the difference between being busy doing his business, which is good, and being busy over serving, which is bad, is simple. So the difference between being busy doing his business and being busy over serving is simple. Did he, as in God, task you with it? Did God give you that assignment, or did you take it upon yourself? Who were you trying to make look good? I was like, oh, well, that's kind of a good way to look at it. Also, she says, the word busy is mentioned 20 times in the Bible. 7 of them are good. 2 of them are kind of random, like it's a really busy square. And then 11 of them were bad. So I was like, like, don't be busy or don't be too busy, that kind of thing. So I thought that was really interesting because I like those statistics.
See, I like that there's good uses of it and there's bad, because obviously when we do too much, it can definitely be an issue. I don't know, I put like in the notes, like, sometimes when we're so busy, we have these goals, we have these structures, we have things we should be doing, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why we kind of overlook people. So one of the examples I can imagine is like, so I went to a summer camp with, that's where the shirt's from. It's for a summer camp for Youth for Christ, and we had a bunch of teens. And as you can tell, these teens were not very smooth or very chill at all. Every hour of the day there was some disruption that went on. There was some fight that was breaking out. There was someone that was just having a mental breakdown. There was someone that was just going through something tough. And it was just like, we had all these programs to do, but constantly I had to feel like I had to be like, okay, I need to address this person. I need to be there for this person right now. Like, everyone can do their own program, but this person right now needs someone to talk to them or hear them out. And that just kind of helped me realize, like, we could have just stuck to the program and done all the things we should have done. And it may not have been a bad thing, for everyone to go stick with the program. But that one person would have experienced a loss. And so to me, in my mind, it's like, if we succeed in everything we want and we succeed in our goals, is it worth it at the expense of a person who suffers? is it worth it? Like, hey, like this podcast, like let's say we're trying to run these things, and one of us is, kind of like going through something or financially or whatever, and it's like we ignore that, and then it's like, is it really worth running when something as bad is happening? And like that, it's just kind of like, that's kind of how I look at these kind of things, is just be open to disruption.
I like that.
And I think that's a start.
One of the things is, it says Satan wants us to keep running in circles. He wants to distract us to minimize our usefulness to the kingdom of God. Satan is the prince of darkness, also the duke of distraction.
The duke of distraction.
I've heard that before, but I thought that was really cool. The other thing is that this world is so focused on be busy. And Jonathan's mentioned it a couple of times. He's like, someday I want to be able to ask you, like, hey, how are you going? And what's up? Like, how's life? And generally people are like, oh, busy, just always doing something. I've been running around. And it's almost like a badge of honor. Like, I've been busy. I have things to do. I have important tasks or something. He's like, one of these days I want somebody, when I ask, hey, how you doing? Just be like, you know what? I have been so rested. Like, I've been like down. I had some time to rejuvenate, to recoup, and just really enjoyed my time. And I got to read the Bible and enjoyed a sunrise. And he's like, I would just love to hear that. And I think so, being restful and enjoying your time, enjoying the things that the time that God has given you, the opportunities it put in place, and not running to one thing to the next. I think it's countercultural. And with that, we're called to not be of this world, to be countercultural.
Yeah.
And so Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And I think can also go into, if you're so busy, you can be more, your brain's scattered. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to do this and I got to do this, and you can't really focus on anything. And if you can't focus, it's going to be really hard to know where God is wanting you to go.
Yeah.
And you, same thing is a different way, but of missing those opportunities. Just one way is you're missing them because you're too busy to stop. Another one is you're too busy because you just can't hear God or in his inclinations to point you in directions.
Oh, okay. So like we wear it as this badge of honor, being busy. And isn't that so true? Like, I feel like this is with anything. Like, anytime anyone says anything, we always have to one-up them. But busyness is one of those things that I feel like we always have to brag about. Like, I've been so busy this week or something like that. Which is, I mean, like I said, it's not like it's a terrible thing, but it just kind of speaks a lot about our culture, and that like this is kind of a hard thing for us to wrestle with.
Yeah, people even say that. Like every time I'm at work or something, and they ask me or my boss or whatever, like, hey, are you staying busy? It's like, staying busy? It's like such a common thing to hear. You're like, oh, yeah. It's too busy. I'm almost too busy. And then it's always like, well, better than too slow. It's always the answer.
Yeah. Right? Like, that's our culture. I'm just going to go back just a little bit to like what I was saying earlier about being open to those opportunities, kind of. One of the other like little stories I like to think about, it's a little short section in the Bible about like, here's Jesus kind of in the middle of speaking and teaching, and these parents bring all their kids, and these kids just start coming up to Jesus. And the disciples are like, yo, what are you doing? Why are you disrupting? Don't you know he's preaching? Don't you know he's speaking? He's got something to teach. And so they start rebuking these kids, and Jesus is like, no, he starts rebuking his disciples. And it's just so interesting because it's like, let the little children come to me and do not forbid them, for of such is the kingdom of God. And it just kind of makes me like, I know Tony kind of talked about this a little while back, that like we need to be open to that disruption. Like, especially when it comes to the kingdom of God, like it's not always going to be smooth. It's not going to always go the way you planned. And I think we have to accept, hey, like, again, I think I made this point earlier, like if I got all my goals and I achieved everything today, what good is it if someone else got left behind and rejected? Yeah. And so I think like those are some of the opportunities we could be looking for. And I think Jesus, he lived by that way. I mean, that no one was more busier than this guy. Every moment of every time he's going somewhere, someone unclean touches them, or someone's crying out to be healed, and all these things. And someone's like, hey, come to my house, And this guy, the only time he can pray is like in the middle of the night with his father.
And when he makes a priority for it,
Yeah, like
he's like, hey, we've been so busy. That's somewhere in this somewhere. But anyway, oh, there it is.
In the script.
Mark 6:31.
Mm-hmm.
Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to his disciples, "Come with me by yourself to a quiet place and get some rest." I like that. Like he's just like, all right, I see what's happening. He's like, we got to take a step back, and it's too much. And then the story of it's a very common story, but the story of Mary and Martha, where Jesus was in his house.
I
So
didn't think of that.
Luke 10:38 through 42. So just buckle up. It's a whole 4 verses. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." And so nobody would say that Martha was doing something she shouldn't. Like she's trying to prepare food for him. He's been traveling. They're on their way somewhere, and she's just like, "I want to make you a meal. I want to make you feel at home. Like, let me do this and this and this." And it's with him in mind, I'm sure. But the kicker is that her sister is just like basking in everything that Jesus is telling her. And because Martha is busying herself with good things, she's missing this opportunity to be closer to Jesus because she's got something else on her mind that Jesus is like, "I'm not telling you to do that. Like it's better for you to just sit here and you just be quiet and you listen to what I have to say to you, and otherwise you're missing an opportunity and you won't get this back if you're doing whatever you're doing."
And that was actually one of my points I was going to mention is like our busyness takes that time and takes us away from God. Kind of exactly as you're saying, like Mary's just sitting there, she's just soaking it in, and Martha's just like doing again good things. And I think that can easily be translated to, especially those of us who are in the church and who are involved in ministry, we can easily be busy doing good things, doing really good things, doing things that, as Christians we should be doing. But how often do we soak up time to be with God and alone? And I think I was listening to a sermon by Paul Washer, and he was preaching to a bunch of pastors. And one of the things he kind of had to rebuke was like, there's so many times when at these conferences, at these seminars, at these pastors, that people are just praying, they're doing all these things during the church and event, and it goes on for hours, the whole day. And then when they get home, often it's just like he's kind of just showing up their inner thoughts, and it's like, how often is it that we go home, we go, "God, didn't we spend enough time with you already? Like, can I just go watch some TV and just go to sleep, or just get some rest, or just scroll through my phone? Like, didn't I already do enough for you? Didn't I already do enough? Like, God, really? Like, do I have to?" Like when it's finally time to do it by yourself and alone, it's like it's different because we've been so busy, and like especially pastors, like he was kind of rebuking that this is a common thing. Like after you're so busy doing so many good things, how often do you make time, just quiet time with God?
What is good busy then? Because we're called to work.
Yes.
And working is a very good thing. Even pre-sin, in the garden, God said, like, go and work the earth and be fruitful and multiply and do work. And this is a good thing. And in the second coming of Jesus, when there's a new heaven and new earth, we're going to work in heaven. So work is really good.
Yes.
But what made it bad was sin, and sin just cracked everything. And it made thorns come up out of the earth, and it made work hard.
Yeah,
and
it work by the sweat of our brow now.
Yeah, but we're called to work. So we've been talking about being overly busy, but how do we do good stuff? Like I feel like we might have.
Yeah.
If we stop there, people are gonna be like, "Oh,
don't do anything.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit at home.
Yeah.
And rest in God."
Yeah, which is why stick around for a little bit more in the episode. We'll kind of at the other end of that. Yeah, because like we're meant to be doing these things. Like we should be doing good things. And I think like with work, one of the things I love that someone kind of pointed out is, what does money really translate to? What does our dollar really translate to? It translates to our work. Like if I get paid $100 that day, it's because I did this, my work was of this much value.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that $100, now it's like, if I buy bread, that means the bread was worth this much work and value.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's just a good way of translating like, hey, the things I do is worth this much. Because sometimes it's hard to, how when we do the laundry, it's like, is it really that good of a work? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get paid to do our own laundry, at least most of us. So we're called to do work because there's good value from it. There's good things that come from it. Like if no one did anything, we wouldn't have any technology that we have. We wouldn't have AC, we had lights or microphones or anything. People would just be lazy. And so I think there is good work. Pitfall is that over like zealousness or that like hyper attention to doing all these works and not being able to like, again, I like to think of it as like be open to disruption. Not, like I just that's just one way I feel like is one good way to counter that. There's probably other ways to counter being overworked, but like I just like, hey, if something comes up, I should be open to take that in if that's important.
Yeah, but I think so. We're called to work, called to do good things, to stay. Well, the opposite of what you said of the idle hands of the devil's playground.
The opposite of that quote you said earlier, like, hey, idle hands is the devil's playground. I have no idea who this guy is. Corey Ten Boom.
That's a big one, actually.
Okay. Oh, is he? Okay. Wow. Apparently, I don't know. Yeah, everyone else is not. Okay. So I guess he once said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. There's truth in that. Both sin and busyness have the same exact effect. They cut off your connection to God, to other people, and even to your soul. So there is like a risk to being overly worked. Now we're going to start talking about
the opposite.
The opposite.
So
go for it. What you got?
We started with Lord God wants it to work. So then Proverbs 6:6 says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider your ways and be wise." I love the consider your ways part. I feel like I've been hearing that lately in different sermons and stuff. And like take a second and stop and kind of evaluate, like, okay, where am I in life? Where are my priorities at? What am I doing? And like learn from something as simple and small as an ant. Like they're known to be hard workers that are constantly they're going and they're doing stuff. Everything they're doing is with a purpose. Like they know what to do. They do it well. They're doing it with a purpose, and they go and they do good work.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, like
because I do like pest control, so I might know a little bit about ants.
Okay.
No, like it's one of those things where like they come out of the womb. Not really. That's more of a metaphor. It's more of a metaphor. It's more of an egg. But like these guys, just they work and they know to be diligent and like no one tells them what to do. They don't have captains and commanders. They just like often like one of the things is like they're active foragers, meaning they're always looking for food. They don't ever stop. Okay, like let's say they find one really good donut to eat off of, they're still gonna be looking for other things. So like they're always actively moving.
So they're too busy.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're a little bit too busy.
It.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where it's like they don't need to be told what to do. They just move forward and do because they just know it like instinctively, and they don't take breaks and like they don't stop. Like there's that whole like YouTube where if you draw a circle around them, they'll walk around in circles until they die. Like they're just gonna keep moving. They're not gonna stop. But like they get confused. I mean, you can confuse them pretty.
Who watched an ant walk in circles until they die?
Yeah.
That's awful.
If you ever get bored.
Okay. So Proverbs 13:4 says, "The soul of a man desires and has nothing." So the first part is sorry, did I say of a lazy man? The soul of a lazy man desires.
I think you messed about the word.
The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing. So a lazy guy is always like, man, I wish I had that. I want that. That guy's got it. And has nothing. But the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. Like if you're out working, like have goals. Have dreams and passions and want to do good things. And I thought it was cool. I had a conversation with my brother-in-law, and we were talking about how to use your business as a ministry, that kind of thing. And if your business should be a ministry, and part of that was no, it doesn't have to be unless you're called to do ministry. But in a way, it is, because if you're a business owner, like, make as much money as you can, well, and then use it for God's kingdom. Like, if you make, like the Samaritan, like, he had a job, he had places to be, he made time for what was good and wholesome, but the other thing is he had the money to do it. Like, you can be a really good person, really helpful, but if he didn't have the money to do it, he wouldn't have been able to do that extra step that way. But making money and using it for the kingdom is also really good. Like, if you are kingdom minded, I know some very rich, really godly people that they make money and they make really good money.
I mean, it's not even possible.
It is. It's harder for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for
maybe
a
we'll
person.
talk about that in a future episodes.
But they make it with a kingdom mindset that they can give it and they can bless people. And if you're busy and you fill your schedule with good things and you're putting God first and prioritizing Him, and He blesses you because of that mindset in your work, He allows you to be part of something that's really cool, and you get to be part of people's lives in ways that other people can't, because they haven't worked it hard, or they didn't put the effort in, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and again, just to kind of, there's another verse that goes right along that same line. It's like Proverbs 10:4, he who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. Like, so if you're talking about like gaining that wealth to use for good things, but like, let's take even, like, we often think of like busyness as making money often, but like, what about even just friendship? That takes work to do. How many times do you guys stay best friends if you never text or call or talk to each other? Like, how are you going to make friends, and how are you going to keep relationships? And so, like, kind of the same way, you have to be diligent to make that work. You have to cultivate it. Otherwise, like, if you're always wondering what, like, again, these lazy people are desiring, they're like, oh, I wish I had more friends, or I wish I had this. Like, then
have you left your room?
Start with
ever.
Start with a shower. Start with, like, just going out, man, and just put yourself out there. Just start with that. Like, be diligent, and it will come to pass. Again, like, it's just talking about, like, if you just want to be lazy and just sit back and wish all day, like, it's not gonna happen. So I don't know. Like, it's in Proverbs, Solomon. I think he's pretty wise. That guy knows some things, and like he's. So I don't know. Just like, there's so much that talks about like diligence. Like, even like in another one, Proverbs 12:24, the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. Like, if you're working, you're grinding, man, you're gonna be on top of things. But if you're just lazy, you have to work. You're just gonna work at usually a crappy job, where you're gonna do crappy things, and you're just, because you have to survive. But like, if you work really well and thrive, you're often gonna be put in a better position or better place. Not always, because I know that doesn't work always or translates always in people's lives, but
whatever you do, Colossians 2:20. Nope. Start over. Colossians 3:23 and 24. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. And that's something that my dad told me a very long time ago. He's like, whatever you're doing, do it like Jesus himself asked you to do it. And it's going to change your mindset about how things are done. It should make you really put in all of your effort to make it good, and so that you can walk away proud of what you've done. But I don't think any lazy person is like, I'm doing this for Jesus. I am. If you consider yourself lazy, now being restful is another thing. Kind of as we said, like that Jesus intentionally, hey, we're busy, we're doing good stuff, but we need this time off.
So kind of the opposite of that. It kind of reminds me of Office Space, like where the guy's like being interviewed, and he's like, I work hard enough to not get fired, but I don't work hard enough that I don't I work hard. I work just hard enough so that I don't get fired, but I don't work any harder because I don't get any more reward. You know, so it's like
That's a lot of
kind of like the
mindset.
lazy mindset. You work just enough not to get fired, but you're not going to go anything above that. And often just because that's more of a lazy mindset, but like kind of as you're saying, like if you're doing everything for the Lord, you're kind of keeping this mindset that like this isn't just about for my boss or for myself. Like this is for God, and also like I feel like it's your opportunity to grow. You know, being that diligent, doing the best that you can.
Well, that's the part where Jesus says, like, to if so in that time, like it was by law required that if the Romans asked you to carry all of their armor and all their baggage and stuff like that, you were required by law as a Jew to carry it for a mile or whatever they used at the time. And so it was a humiliating thing. Like the Romans are the ones ruling over them and killing them and putting their rules in place and all this stuff. And Jesus was like, no, don't. If they ask you, you don't go 1 mile. You go 2 miles. Like you double it, whatever they say. And I think that goes with the working thing. Like a lot of people, too many people, are in jobs that they hate, which is a different topic.
Yeah.
But when you're in a job, you have a job, do your best at it. If your boss sucks, first of all, you don't need to stay in that job. But if your boss sucks and he asks you to do things that you don't want to do, like do it and do it well. Do it the best that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it says like you are doing this, you are serving the Lord Christ, and you are serving the person that God has put over you at that time. So do it well, be proud of your work, and even if they don't see it, like God is seeing it, and He's like, yeah, you did good there.
Mm-hmm.
Like well done for working hard the way I asked you, and you're representing Jesus in your work. Like you are the best Christian somebody knows, which is kind of
a scary thought. Yeah, I know that's a scary thought.
Intimidating sometimes.
Don't put that out there.
Yeah.
Take that back.
But you are. You're the best Christian somebody knows. So you need to represent Christianity, represent Jesus well in your work, whether you like it or not. And by doing good things with your work and filling your time well, and showing them what working as a godly man or woman looks like.
Dude, I just love you. Just like set me up for a layup right here, man. So one of the like often like I know with Proverbs they have a lot of things about laziness, but one of the ones that actually comes to mind in the New Testament is in 2 Thessalonians, where 2 Thessalonians. VeggieTales. So anyways, where Paul is kind of like warning about people who are being idle with not really doing any work, and so I'm going to start with 2 Thessalonians.
You got it.
All right, I'm doing all right. Chapter 3, verse 8. Nor did we eat anyone's bread free of charge, but worked with labor and toiled night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you. Not because we do not have authority, but we make ourselves an example of how you should follow us. For even when we were with you, we commanded you this: if anyone will not work, neither shall he eat. For we hear that there are some who walk among you in a disorderly manner, not working at all, but are busybodies. So like Paul is even like making examples, like when I was with you, I worked and grind. I worked in the day and preached in the night. I did not just take food off or things from you guys. I made sure to set an example. Kind of as you're talking about, like if your boss is telling you to do things, you're probably the best Christian that they will know. Set that example and be diligent. And Paul was even doing that. So it's like if he didn't even make it excuses to be lazy and take things from people, and he was working, like we ought to be doing that too. So I don't know.
Well, they say very harsh things about people that don't work. 1 Timothy 5:8.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone does not provide for his own family, especially for his own household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever.
Jeez.
Like that is harsh.
Mm-hmm.
That is very strong language for like if you are not providing and you're not working for your family.
Mm-hmm.
So do some work. But on the positive side of that, like Ecclesiastes 3:13 It is also the gift of God whenever anyone eats, drinks, and enjoys all of his efforts. And this isn't just a work you to the bone. You crossed off. You don't
Yeah, I got too much notes. I'm like, I gotta consolidate.
Well, I'll get it for you.
Thank you.
Like, enjoy what you make. Like, God has allowed you. He has blessed you with this job and with the money you make there, and enjoy it, knowing that God provided for you, and He provided the things that you get to buy with it. Like, give to the church, give to people on the street, be the good Samaritan that is set money aside that can pay for someone in need, but also enjoy what He's given you. Like, buy a jet ski, enjoy your jet ski, go to a really nice dinner every once in a while. Like, enjoy the
Buy
things.
something off the dollar menu or off the dollar menu.
Buy some for more than $1.
More than $1.
And enjoy it.
Treat yourself.
Like, and thank God that God has given you, provided that you have the funds to do fun things. And while you're riding on the jet ski, be like, man, God, I get to enjoy a part of creation that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have this jet ski.
Yeah, jet ski is such a beautiful natural thing of creation.
You're not gonna. Okay, thank you that I had the money to buy this tree. You want a
Yeah.
beautiful natural creation.
No, you're good. I was just messing with you.